IELTS Listening Test. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Now, turn to Part 1.
You will now have 30 seconds to look at questions 1 to 5. You will hear a telephone conversation between a travel agent and a customer about booking a holiday package to Australia. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, Safe Holiday Travel. My name is Sarah. How can I help you today?
Good morning. I'm calling about the new Australia package, the one you call the Gold Coast Getaway. My wife and I wanted to check availability for next month.
Certainly. That's a very popular package. Are you looking for the 10-day option or the longer 14-day trip? The 10-day option is typically what young couples choose, but the value is clearly better with the longer one.
Well, I'd initially planned for 10 days, as you say, but I think the 14-day one offers much better value, and my wife has the extra time off, so yes, the 14-day one, please.
Excellent. And which month were you hoping to travel? We have spaces open in April, May, and June.
We need to travel before the end of May. I was aiming for the 21st of May, if possible.
The 21st of May. The 21st is fully booked, I'm afraid, because of a local festival. We have the 18th of May available or the 29th.
Oh, the 21st was perfect. The 29th is definitely too late. We'll have to take the earlier date then. So the 18th of May, please?
Wonderful. Now the total price for the 14-day package for 2 people, that comes to... Wait, no, sorry. I'm looking at last month's prices. The final price, including all taxes, is actually...
Right. Would have been nice, but I'll make a note of the revised amount.
Understood. We offer the shared apartment or the private villa. The apartment is included, but the villa is an extra.
Oh, we definitely want the extra space and privacy. So please book us into the private villa. I don't mind the extra cost.
Noted. Now about travel insurance. We usually offer world cover, but we're recommending our clients use Global Sure this month.
Global Sure? Could you spell that name for me?
Certainly. That's Global and then SURE.
Great. GLOBALSURE. Thank you.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
And before I confirm everything, I just need a few personal details. What is your full name?
It's Mr. Julian Farnsworth.
Farnsworth. Can you please spell that for me?
Yes, it's FARNSWORTH.
FARNSWORTH. H. Thank you. And your date of birth?
I was born on the 22nd of February, 1978.
The 22nd of February, 1978. Got that? And your full home address?
It's 23 Clifton Road. That's Clifton.
23 Clifton Road. And the postcode?
The postcode is 4510. Wait, let me just check that. No, I think that's my old office postcode. It's actually 4501.
4501. Thank you for checking. And finally, if we need to call you back, what is the best time?
I usually ask for a call after 7, but I have a commitment at 7:30 this week, so perhaps just before I leave work at around 4:30 p.m. would be safest.
4:30 p.m. Perfect. I have everything I need now.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 2. You will hear a director of a local arts and heritage center giving a talk about its new programs and facilities. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our annual public update. The center has undergone some significant changes this year. I want to highlight 3 improvements. First, the exhibition space. We received many complaints that the old ground floor gallery was too dark. We tried installing stronger lights, but the humidity control was affected. So the only solution was to move the main art display upstairs to the new naturally lit hall. That old space is now our cafe. Next, the annual festival. It used to be held in mid-October. This created problems because of unpredictable autumn weather. We discussed moving it to late summer, but that conflicted with the university schedule. We've decided to move the festival to early September, hoping to catch the last of the good weather. Our cafe is now open, as mentioned. Please note the payment options. We can take cash, and we also accept card payments for transactions over. However, to speed up the queue and reduce waiting times, we strongly encourage everyone to use the new mobile app to pay, as it's the fastest method. We've also updated the process for reserving a room for private events. You still need to call the administrative line and complete the online form. But the biggest change is that you are now required to pay a full upfront fee instead of a small deposit, just to ensure commitment. Finally, public transport. We are encouraging visitors to use public transport. A new tram stop was planned for the north side, but that was delayed. The most effective route is still the number 7 bus, which drops you right at the front door. The subway station is often too crowded on weekends.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20.
Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now, let's briefly detail the 4 new weekly programs available for members. First, the Photography Club. This is designed to help members achieve technical skill, focusing specifically on composition and light to make better images. Next is the Local History Group. This group goes out into the city every week. It's not about buildings, but documenting the experiences of older residents. The primary aim is collecting personal anecdotes before they are lost. The creative writing class is highly popular. The instructor provides exercises on structure and style. The class is focused on helping new writers overcome initial apprehension and the fear of the blank page. Lastly, the community drama sessions. These are for members of all ages. We hoped this would improve communication, but the main feedback is that it acts as a wonderful way to build confidence in front of an audience. We also run the ceramics workshop. This is a basic crafting class, and its success is measured by the tangible results. The main requirement is that members take home a finished product at the end of the session.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Part 3. You will hear a discussion between 2 university students, Chloe and Ben, and their tutor about an urban ecology research project. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Right. Chloe and Ben, thanks for coming in. Let's talk about your project proposal on urban ecology. Ben, what was your initial take on the scope of the material you gathered?
I was initially worried we wouldn't find enough information, but actually, the sheer amount of academic journals and field studies available was surprising. It was more about choosing the right methodology, how to synthesize the information, than simply finding the content.
And Chloe, did the data volume also strike you?
It did. The data on avian populations, for example, was huge. But my main concern centered on making sure the robustness of our primary source data was solid. I felt a little anxious that we might be relying too much on surveys done by other institutions, rather than focusing enough on original, verifiable research.
We briefly looked at focusing on rooftop gardens or maybe even industrial land. Rooftops were too restrictive, and industrial sites are almost always private property, making continuous access nearly impossible to negotiate. So the parks were the obvious choice, because other locations were ruled out due to issues with accessibility. Now, you need to select 3 key topics for the final presentation. We both felt it was absolutely crucial to include a segment discussing the options for securing funding future projects.
I totally agree with Ben on the funding. But for me, the main point, the element that will ensure engagement, is showing the practical application of our findings for city planners. That will interest the entire department.
And we realized the core of our analysis is tracking populations over time. So we definitely need to use that advanced population modeling software. Those 3 points cover the most important elements.
Good.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30.
Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, let's briefly discuss the usefulness and relevance of the following academic sources. Let's start with the article by Dr. Patel on green corridors and urban policy. Chloe, what did you think?
I read it thoroughly, but I felt it was too heavily weighted toward the political and budgetary aspects. It didn't offer any real insight into biological diversity, which is the absolute core of our scientific area.
Ben, your view on Professor Davies' monograph on insect migration patterns?
I thought that was incredibly useful. It provided a clear, step-by-step model for our own fieldwork. It's certainly the benchmark for our methodology.
And the historical map archives you found?
That archive was fantastic. It supports our arguments about human impact on local wildlife over time.
Excellent. And finally, the large-scale case study on New York City's Central Park?
I actually didn't find that useful at all. It was surprisingly shallow in terms of data. It didn't contain any useful information on soil or atmospheric conditions, which is a key physical variable in our own research here. We decided to discard it.
That is the end of Part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 4. You will hear a lecture on the psychological impact of noise pollution in cities. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we're moving away from visual distractions to focus on an equally pervasive sensory problem in the urban environment: noise pollution. We're not talking about loud music, but rather chronic, low-level sound that contributes to psychological strain. Our focus today is on 2 main areas: the impact on health and the impact on cognitive ability. To start, let's consider the general physiological effects. Early research often looked at direct hearing damage, but modern studies are concerned with the stress response. Noise pollution acts as a constant stressor, forcing the body into a state of heightened alertness. This sustained stress is directly linked to an elevation of blood pressure and, surprisingly, an increase in cortisol levels. That's the primary stress hormone. High levels of this hormone have been consistently observed in populations living near major airports, a clear sign of chronic environmental stress. Now, let's distinguish between high-frequency and low-frequency noise. High-frequency sounds are immediately obvious and often cause a startle response. Low-frequency sound, however, is often felt more than heard, typically coming from heavy traffic or industrial ventilation. It's subtle, continuous, and has been found to disrupt the digestive system, causing a range of chronic stomach issues. Curiously, research suggests it has less impact on sleep patterns than high-frequency noise does, which is counterintuitive. Moving on to cognition, the effects are well documented, particularly in children. A famous study conducted in the 1970s involving schools located near elevated railway lines demonstrated a clear correlation. Children in the loudest classrooms scored poorly on reading comprehension, showing a deficit in basic literacy. The researchers proposed that the intermittent, loud noises forced students to divert their attention away from their learning tasks. This diversion created small but frequent gaps in concentration. Subsequent research in the 1990s confirmed these early findings. They discovered that the key factor wasn't the absolute loudness, but the unpredictability of the noise. When noise is predictable, our brain learns to filter it. However, unpredictable noise, such as sudden jackhammering, significantly impacts a student's capacity for complex problem solving. It impedes the brain's ability to maintain focus. Let's briefly examine mitigation strategies. While building better sound barriers is expensive and often impractical for large urban areas, researchers are now looking at architectural solutions. One concept involves redesigning city apartments using non-traditional building materials, specifically recycled polymers and wood composites, instead of concrete, as they absorb sound better. Finally, the shift toward electric vehicles, EVs, offers a potential solution, but it creates a new challenge. While the elimination of engine noise is fantastic, the sound from tires hitting the road surface, the tire road noise, remains significant, especially at high speeds. In dense city centers, EVs are now so quiet that they pose a safety risk, especially to pedestrians and cyclists who rely on engine noise for warning. The solution, surprisingly, involves adding synthesized noise back into the vehicles at low speeds, using artificial sound devices. This is a fascinating example of technology addressing one problem and creating another, only to solve the original issue in a counterintuitive way. That concludes our lecture for today. Thank you.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.